everyone, I'm Kim Cash, and today I made a cake already, and I'm going to just do a trial one because on the weekend of July 4th I'm going to have the kids over and we're going to have a paint night. My kids are really adults, so they're going to come over and we're going to do a paint night, but I thought I'd have a dessert, and this is just a test one because I'm not a professional cook or baker, but I love to do it. And so I've baked 4 small little cakes. They're like 4-inch cakes, rounds, and I have this, it's like a little saw. I don't know if you guys can see that, but to try to even out my layers, I'm going to try to make a red, white, and blue cake, and so I'm just going to trim them. And I baked these yesterday and put them in the fridge downstairs. We have an extra fridge because I like to bake. And then now I'm just going to decorate it. And if it turns out, then I will use this design for the actual weekend. This is my Silpat, which is just a silicone little mat that I use to bake cookies on and make things on. And you could just use parchment paper or whatever you wanted to do, but this is what I do. And so I'm going to cut off the top because you can see there's an overage, and it should make them all even. You could just use a knife, but when I do that I tend to, some of my cakes crumble a little bit because obviously I'm not very good at it. Then I save the tops to make, crumble them together with some frosting and make cake pops. So there's one. I always like to make a couple in case one of them doesn't turn out. I don't know if you guys ever have that issue, but I do. Sometimes they stick to the pan, or I don't know. I have 2 different ovens, and yeah, there's a reason I'm not skinny. I've always loved to bake, even as a kid. When I grew up in a family with, Mom had 9 kids. There were only 7 of us that made it all the way to 18. Mom had one daughter who died right at birth from, they said it was a soft bone disease. And then one got like pneumonia and died, and they called it SIDS. So, but there were 9 of us, and 7 of us grew up together in the house with, my grandma lived with us too. So there were 10 all the time, and I used to love to bake. Nobody else really liked to bake. Even my mom didn't like to bake. She cooked a lot, but she did not like to bake. And I think it's just because she was spent so much time in the kitchen. She used to sit around the kitchen table all the time because she was cooking all the time, and so she probably didn't want to bake after cooking. The only thing she did make for desserts was cobbler. And I sometimes make cobblers, but it's not my husband's favorite dessert. He doesn't really like cobbler. Or at least, it's one of his least favorite desserts. Anyway, so now I've got these all kind of leveled. And what you could do, you know, with cake, if you're not a big cake person, you could put a simple syrup solution between them to keep them moist, because some people think that cake just isn't very moist dessert and that's why they don't like it. But you could just do a simple syrup in between the layers, or you could do some jam. A lot of times I put jam between them. But you can see that comes out pretty nicely. Typically I would always do some kind of filling in between them, but because this is just a test run, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I'm really more interested in the design, how I'm going to design it, and I haven't really figured it all out. But I'm going to move that over to my cutting board, and I'm going to get a turntable, which is in the back hallway. I'll get that and I'll be right back. This is my turntable, and it's just an inexpensive plastic one. It's a Wilton. Let me see if I can bring it over and show you. It's a Wilton, I don't know if you can see that on the name, but it's just a, I got some cake crumbs on it from my hands. But the reason you have this is so that when you are trying to get around all the corners, all the sides, it's easy to do. And so you want to try to make sure that it's pretty even, because I'm thinking of doing a stripe cake. And so you want it to be pretty, you know, even and symmetrical. So I made this frosting, which I always make homemade frosting. Well, not always, but most often. And what I do is I take 3 cups of powdered sugar and then 2 cubes of butter. You could use, a lot of people use like Crisco, but I don't think that would taste good. That's just me. You could use cream cheese. There's lots of things you could do, but anyway, I make it with, this is my buttercream frosting, and just 3 cups of powdered sugar, and then 2 cubes of softened, and by softened I mean you just leave it sitting out. You don't want it like liquid, or else your buttercream will be too thin, and you'll have to let it sit in the fridge to stiffen up or something. But so 2 cubes of butter, 3 cups of powdered sugar, and then I put a splash. I'm not great about measuring things. I just like to make my own recipes, and I like vanilla, so I use vanilla, just a splash. And then like a tablespoon of cream, and I just used milk. You can use recipes to me. You know, I grew up with my mom who always had to just make do with what she had. Recipes are just a guideline, and so my kids would tell you, I always say that, it's just a beginning place. So if you like some kind of a flavoring, or you like something, try it. And so I add just a splash of vanilla, and then like a tablespoon of, this was milk, but you could use cream. Anyway, now I'm just going to get a crumb coat on the bear cake. And the reason you do a crumb coat is if you've ever frosted a cake, you'll see a bunch of crumbs come up, and you don't want to have that. So if you do a crumb coat and then you let it chill for a little bit in the fridge, like 20 minutes or half hour, then your next layer will be much prettier. And so you want to put down a little bit of frosting underneath the cake to hold it steady, because it acts kind of like a glue. Frosting is always a glue, an edible glue. I do have some edible, let me see if I can find it, some edible glue, and I'll show you. If you're making like something and you want it to stay in your baking, this is dab and hold, and it's edible adhesive, and it's tasteless. I mean, I can't taste it, maybe. My kids never say they can taste it, so I think it's probably, you know, not very flavorful. But anyway. Okay, so now I'm just going to put on a layer of frosting, and this will be my crumb coat. And it doesn't have to be perfect. A lot of people always think, oh, everything's got to be perfect, but you're just going to eat it. So, I mean, I just think, you know, if it's not perfect, oh well. My kids will eat it. They never have a problem eating something that isn't, you know, absolutely pretty. They always say they'd rather have something that tastes good than something that's pretty. And I almost would rather have something that's pretty than something that tastes good. So I try to compromise. I want it to be pretty, but I want it to taste good. And so one of the things I do a lot of is I use fondant, because fondant gives you such a perfect finish. But my kids really don't like fondant. And so a lot of times I just use whipped cream and fruit, because that's what they prefer. So most of the time I just do whipped cream and fresh fruit. But if I want to, you know, decorate, to me it's like art. It's art with food as your medium. Then I just enjoy doing it. It's like during the pandemic, I took up a bunch of different types of art. I started messing around with watercolor, which I'd never done. But I just think it's very peaceful when the dogs are being quiet and the house is quiet and I'm home alone. I think doing a watercolor or a sketch is just very relaxing. And I know I'm not good at it, but I don't care. You know, I'm not going to sell them, so it's just for me. And we like to do, the kids like to do paint night. We all get together, have a nice dinner, and we have some margaritas, or I like lemon drops. A lot of times we have lemon drops, or you could have wine. I'm not a big wine person, but sometimes we have wine, and the boys, and I don't like beer, so it's just not my drink. And I feel like it's a lot of calories for not much flavor. So I don't ever drink beer. But the boys sometimes have a beer. My daughter sometimes has one, but not very often. Anyway. So I'm just trying to get a nice thick layer on, because when you're doing stripe cake, you do want a lot of frosting on the cake, because you've got to scrape some off to get your next color on, and it doesn't do any good to be frugal with your frosting. And that's why I like to make it myself. It's super simple to make, and you can pay a lot of money in the store for something. It takes like 2 minutes for me to make frosting, if that. You just take the powdered sugar, some melted butter, or softened, not melted. But like on a winter day, I'll just put it in the microwave for 10 seconds and just, you know, if I haven't let it sit out and get soft. And some cold days, it doesn't really get soft anyway. So then you just want to try to even it up some, so it's kind of level, kind of even. I might have to get a smoother. Let me get a smoother, it'll do better. This is one of my favorite smoothers. It's just a pie cutter, actually, but I really like it. It just, for some reason, it works really well for me. I know a lot of people buy specialty smoothers, and I'm just cheap. I like to use what I have, like Mom used to do. And so if you have, you know, a pie cutter or something that you think works, you don't have to go out and buy something. You just don't want to scrape off too much frosting. You just want to try to get it kind of even. And then that's the nice thing about turning it around. You can see where it's uneven. And then where you have spots that are bare, you can go back and put some on and just try to, you know, thicken it up again, build it up. And then you want to always pull your frosting into the center on the top, just to kind of even out the top. You might have a better way of doing it. This is just how I do it. And then I can reuse the frosting. If there's crumbs in it, you're not going to want to reuse it for the next layer. But if you're going to make cake pops and you're just going to be mixing it with crumbs, and see, I can make cake pops that I'll just put on the top of my cake. And it's just an easy way of using what you have. Okay, so that's pretty good. I'm just going to run it down and let it sit in the fridge for like 20 minutes. And then I'll come back and do the second layer. So there you can see that it's pretty even. I mean, it's not perfect, but like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, I'll be right back. So my cake sat down in a freezer for about 10 minutes, and now I'm going to put on another coat of frosting, so I have a solid, thick coating on it. And when you're doing this, you might want to just have, you know, some spatulas around and stuff. And different tools work best for different people. I know a lot of people like, you know, to pipe their stuff on. I just like to do the easiest way for me. And I'm sure there's more professional ways, but I'm not selling this cake. It's just for my family. And this one's not even for our 4th of July. It's just so I could try to figure out what kind of design I wanted to do. I've thought about, you know, doing red, white, and blue stripes. I've thought about making stars. I thought about making a flag. There's lots of things you could do. So we'll see what I come up with. And it's, you know, no cake I ever make is exactly what I envision. I always envision it's going to be much prettier than what I make. But I have fun doing it. So if you have fun doing something, you should do it. If I was, you know, going to sell the cake, maybe I'd do that. But there's the second coat. Let me bring it over so you can see you can still see some of the crumbs in it, and you can see little imperfections like right there. But when I scrape it away, it will be fine. Anyway, I'm going to go put it in the freezer again for another 10 minutes. So while I'm waiting for the cake to chill, I'm just going to use this leftover cake, just crumble it up with my hands. You could use a fork or something if you don't like getting your hands into the cake. And then I'm just going to add some frosting in it. And then I make little balls with little, you could use sucker sticks, or you can just get them at, you know, a food craft store. So I've just crumbled it up. Let me see if I can show you. It's just crumbled cake. And then I'm just going to use the leftover frosting from my Crumb Coat. And if you like sweet treats, this is really a sweet treat. But you could also make your recipe as sweet or as kind of savory as you want it. You could add lavender flavoring or lemon. You can do whatever you want. That's what I like about making my own. Then you don't have to pick whatever someone else wanted to make. And if you have an unusual flavor pairing that you like, you can do that. So now you just stir it up. But you want it to be, like I said, frosting is the glue that holds things together. And so you do want there to be enough frosting to make it stay together. And it's a good way to use up your leftover cake and your leftover frosting. And it's really gooey. If when you were a kid you liked playing with Play-Doh, you might really like this. But when it starts to stick together so that you can form it into balls, that's when it's ready. And then what you're going to want to do is put the little sticks on it. Form it into balls, put the little sucker sticks on it, And then you can chill them. When you've got chilled product, it's always easier to work with. And then you warm up some chocolate. I use like a white chocolate. And then you just dip it in. And you've got really delicious snacks. I can hear my cat wanting to get upstairs. He's in the basement. So I need to hurry. Okay. So now I'll get the sticks and we'll form these into little balls. Because it's pretty good right there. And I can let. So now I've got my candy melts. I'll show you. Oops, sorry, I kicked the camera. Candy melts and my dough for my cake pops. And I've got a couple different sizes because I'm not sure what I want. But I've got some cake pop sticks. And they just come, they have instructions on how to make your cake pops. And these are for candy melts for candies. So they're just different sizes. Here's what they look like, the candy melts. And I'm gonna melt those. And then I'll be back to finish making the cake pops. So now I've got my white chocolate. And here's one of the things I do first is dip your stick into the white chocolate. And that just kind of helps you have some glue. You always need glue. And then I'm just going to form a little ball. You don't want to make them too big. That's always my problem, making things too big. And the more frosting you have in there, of course, the better it will hold together. And then I'm just going to set them down for a minute and let them get solidified. Okay, so now I'm just going to go around the cake and make an indentation on it. I'm going to try to do it evenly, which you got to try to get the same amount of pressure all around it, which is not always easy. Pretty good. And I'm going to put it back in the freezer before I put the next coat of frosting on. But you can see the ridges. Here's one little bare spot there, but that's where the red's going to go. Red or blue, I haven't decided. Because I want it to be red, white, and blue. So I just made some blue frosting. I don't know if you can see that. Okay, so now I'm going to decorate a little bit. I've got some paper doilies that I can put the cake on. I'm just going to decorate around it. to the cake. They're just the little cake pops without the sticks. Then I'm going to add a couple cake pops. So there you have it. That's my practice cake for the 4th of July cake. I could add a few more cake pops. It's not a big deal. Oops. I went too far. You gotta remember there's a stick in there. Maybe if I put it on the back side here. So there you have it. My practice 4th of July cake. So I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be making another one for the real 4th of July. But you kind of have to practice if you haven't done it for a while. Anyway, I just wanted to say I hope you enjoyed this little cake making video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to watch me make other cakes and other things, then please subscribe to my channel and click on the notification bell so you'll be notified of my next video. But thank you guys, and I hope you guys have a great holiday. I know it's still a little ways away, but it'll be here before we know it. So thanks for watching, everyone. Bye!